Henry Kissinger. All right, the guy's just turned 100 years old, and there's been a lot of talk about him in the media, and I'll just start out by saying it's kind of a sad irony that someone who's killed so many people and robbed them of their birthdays, and their time on Earth, gets to celebrate 100. It's a sad irony. I thought we'd go through, I only have so much time, but a short list of Henry Kissinger's accomplishments, right? We'll try and look at what he's most famous for and what people don't talk about also, which they tend to forget, right? So I mean, just in short, Henry. For those of you who don't know, Henry Kissinger. He's considered by some, I don't know who these people are, maybe Hillary Clinton, to be some kind of like master, geostrategist and an amazing diplomat. He's anything but a diplomat. He's more like a thug who just, kind of betrays people and sticks knives in their backs and then kills hundreds of thousands of people, to put it mildly. So he was former national security advisor, also officially, so he was national security advisor, U.S. Secretary of State. And, he's a German Jew who fled Nazi persecution, and he went to the United States. He became a U.S. citizen. He joined the U.S. Army as a lot of people did who fled. And, he excelled academically, went to Harvard and so on, and then he ends up in politics, right? He ends up in the Vietnam Paris peace talks, playing a central pivotal role. So the thing is that he sabotaged those peace talks, right? He basically made sure that the war was prolonged. He was personally getting involved in it, to the point that his idea of peace talks was basically bombing Laos and Cambodia. So, just to read this to you from the History Channel, right? So look at what they say. So Kissinger was deeply involved in the bombing raids on Cambodia and in keeping them a secret from Congress and the public. According to a Pentagon report released in 1973, quote, Henry Kissinger approved each of the 3,875 Cambodia bombing raids in 1969 and 1970, as well as the methods for keeping them out of the newspapers. Okay, so by the end of the bombing campaign, which was nicknamed Operation Menu, the United States had dropped a total of 110,000 tons of bombs that killed between 150,000 and 500,000 civilians. The Khmer Rouge galvanized anti-American sentiment in a destabilized Cambodia, rising to power and slaughtering 1.7 to 2.2 million Cambodians as part of the Cambodian genocide. I mean, to be honest, anyone could galvanize anti-American sentiment after that crap. But yeah, the Khmer Rouge, extremely brutal and killed millions of people. And that's thanks to Henry Kissinger. So you have the initial crime, and then the indirect consequence of that. Well, it's not very indirect, is it? One thing I would add here is that many Americans, they take issue with this. Primarily, for them, because he kept it, basically out of the newspapers, and he didn't tell Congress, like as if that's the the main crime. Oh my God, he didn't tell Congress. He didn't he didn't follow the system of checks and balances. No, man, the main crime here is killing all of those people. Do you understand? Like, if he had told Congress, would that make it any better? If he had briefed people in the government, would that have made it better that he killed all these people in Cambodia? No. So that's the first thing you mention. And the last thing, after the Khmer Rouge and after killing all of the hundreds of thousands of people, then you say Henry Kissinger also lied to Congress and kept it out of there. Yeah, that's how you do it. Okay, because every goddamn thing you read is that he hid it from Congress. Oh, and by the way, he killed all these people. God, it's a thinking that it's this imperialist thinking, or maybe it's indirect, and it's it's because of the conditioning that has to go through Congress. Congress is everything. Yeah, okay, but human life is also comes first. Anyway, let me continue. So let's pivot from Vietnam to South America, right, to Latin America, because I'm sure many of you have heard of Pinochet, right? So he was basically a Chilean general, and he rose to power thanks to the United States and Henry Kissinger backing him, right? So they installed a dictatorship basically in Chile, because at the time it was the thinking was that if you're against the communists, right, then you're with us, you're on our side, and we'll do whatever it takes to back you. You've got our green light. I mean, Pinochet, it's actually interesting with him because afterwards you had this whole concept about universal jurisdiction, and when he was in London, well, that's a whole other conversation. But in any case, Henry Kissinger backed him. If we go to Southeast Asia to talk about Indonesia, I mean, I think Kissinger and the president, they were on their way back to the United States, and they kind of gave their okay for Indonesia to invade East Timor, right? So you had about 200,000 people killed as a result. And again, I say this kind of, I want you to understand something, that I find this kind of ridiculous that the United States okays people like as if you require the United States consent. I mean, it's the invasion and of East Timor by Indonesia is, as I said, it's the primary crime, but it's also this imperialist thinking that we have to go to Daddy Uncle Sam and get his get his consent before everything. So my point here is that Henry Kissinger is very, very much to the core of his being an American imperialist, right? He's like the personification of Uncle Sam. Okay, he embodies Uncle Sam. He looks different from the caricature, but he is Uncle Sam, right? In every sense of the term. After that, I'm jumping back and forth between continents, but I'm trying to go chronologically. So, Argentina. Right, so the junta, the military junta, that's another 30,000 people killed. Another, something else that Henry Kissinger backed. You have Pakistan and killing of Bengalis. Again, hundreds of thousands of people killed. And then the funny thing is that in 1973 he gets a Nobel Peace Prize. Right, like this man. Jesus, I mean, his hands are completely drenched in blood. He's red. His entire body is drenched in blood. No, never mind his hands. He gets a Nobel Peace Prize. I feel bad trashing it because, both of my parents have Nobel Peace Prizes, but they didn't, kill people in Southeast Asia or something like that. They did UN peacekeeping, which is very different. But you have people like Barack Obama and Henry Kissinger who unfortunately, they basically, they do the name a lot of harm. But yeah, that's they decided to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Here, this is the section I was trying to show you. So this is 1976. Kissinger is briefed on Operation Condor, a secret program created by the intelligence services of the military dictatorships of South America to assassinate their political foes inside and outside their countries. Okay, so basically these are dictatorships in Latin America who just want to kill dissidents, whether they're inside their own countries or somewhere halfway across the globe. So Henry Kissinger blocks a State Department effort to warn these military juntas not to proceed with international assassinations. And then, so there's a dossier released by the National Security Archives showing that 5 days later, Condor's boldest and most infamous terrorist attack took place in downtown Washington, D.C., when a car bomb planted by Pinochet's agents, so again, that's the dictator he helped install in Chile, killed former Chilean ambassador Orlando Letelier and his young colleague Ronnie Moffett. So Henry Kissinger's just like, yeah, whatever, you can just do what you need to do, right? There's a funny clip actually that I recall of Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And of course, I think we all take issue with Bernie Sanders now after he kind of just acquiesced to Hillary Clinton and the neoliberal Democratic Party and just rolled over. But it's still a funny clip. It's in 2016. Let's take a look.
where the Secretary and I have a very profound difference. In the last debate, and I believe in her book, very good book, by the way, in her book and in this last debate, she talked about getting the approval or the support or the mentoring of Henry Kissinger. Now, I find it rather amazing because I happen to believe that Henry Kissinger was one of the most destructive secretaries of state in the modern history of this country. I am proud to say that Henry...
Why is he destructive when you call him the butcher? Everyone says like Assad the butcher, but no one says Kissinger the butcher. Come on, say it with me, guys. If we say it, it will catch on. Kissinger the butcher. Okay, everybody, 1, 2, 3. Kissinger the butcher.
Kissinger is not my friend. I will not take advice from Henry Kissinger. And in fact, Kissinger's actions in Cambodia, when the United States bombed that country, overthrew Prince Sihanouk, created the instability for Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge to come in, who then butchered some 3 million innocent people, one of the worst genocides in the history of the world. So count me in as somebody who will not be listening to Henry Kissinger.
Secretary Clinton. Well, I know journalists have asked who you do listen to on foreign policy, and we have yet to know who that is.
Well, it ain't Henry Kissinger, that's
fine.
for sure.
That's fine.
Okay, he kind of did a great job at roasting her. She was just like, can you just roll over already? Now's the time. Now's the time, Bernie. You do it now. Okay, I know this is completely petty and unrelated, but look, have you seen Henry Kissinger's signature? What is this thing? This is his official signature. It's like he took a pen and tried to write with his foot or something. What the hell is this? You know, you expect someone who's murdered so many people, who's so evil, to have like an evil emblem or some kind of seal. This is pathetic, man. What is this? All right. Anyway, aside from his signature, let me play this clip for you.
And then Kissinger founds, of course, Kissinger Associates, and so he's out of office now for what?
Okay, so this is about Henry Kissinger and his time after office. So after he's murdered all these people in Southeast Asia and in Vietnam and Indonesia, and then going on to Latin America and so on. So now he's out of office, right? He's got his Nobel Peace Prize.
76 to now is, with a half a day, 50 years, and during that time, his Kissinger Associates has been a kind of premier concierge service for the global elite. It basically broken the privatization of national industries in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, in Russia. He's a key player in all of these movements. We have no information about any of that, right? And it's arguably more consequential in some ways. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I guess the actual war crimes were when he was in office for 8 years. But there is this black hole of his role as a consultant to the global elite during this very consequential moment in which an enormous amount of wealth transferred from the bottom to the top, and Kissinger was deeply involved in that. He helped broker NAFTA, for example. He told Clinton that Clinton had political capital to do only one of two things his first year. He could either pass Hillary Clinton's national health program, or he could push for NAFTA. And he advised him to push for NAFTA, and Clinton did. And we got NAFTA, and we didn't get a healthcare expansion, which I think says a lot about the post-Cold War trajectory of the United States and how we got.
Yeah. I mean, something else that I would also add to Kissinger's time is, with apartheid South Africa. So basically, no one would touch South Africa. I think he was the first U.S. Secretary of State to go there in a couple of decades, right? Since a couple of decades. So he by going there, he met also, I remember, with the leadership in Germany. Right, so it was as he loves to do in and outside of the concerned country. So he basically, my point here is that he lent and he gave legitimacy to that apartheid government by meeting with them, right? Because before him, no one would touch them, and he did kind of like strong arm them and push them into accepting black majority, but I don't think it was out of his concern for black people in who are living under apartheid South Africa. Keep in mind, he's meeting with them after the massacre in Soweto. So it's not just like he's having dinner with them. They just butchered a bunch of students, okay, right? And he's meeting with them and lending them some form of legitimacy, having been having held all of these official titles in the U.S. government. And so, I don't think he had any concern whatsoever for black people living under apartheid. And even there's this funny graphic here from the Associated Press. I think it was published around that time. Kissinger's African peace mission, right? Like he's the noble white man will come and school you on what to do with your countries, right? So once again, what does he do here? Not only the apartheid issue I just mentioned, but he also prolongs, the conflict, right? So this is concerning Angola and South Africa and so on. He just makes things worse wherever he goes. And people, they still lend him, the title of the best diplomat of the 20th century. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's a constructed, a fake, synthetic title. And keep in mind, Richard Nixon. I'm kind of jumping between issues because I can't handle all of this Kissinger at once. There's too much to say. When they had the Watergate scandal, you have to keep in mind that Nixon resigned, but Kissinger, his reputation untarnished, of course, and I find it shocking that it's taken so many decades for people to like wake up and see him for who he is, because now he gets a lot more heat for this, and you'll see a lot more heat against him in the mainstream press. Although it's not enough for me to sit here and say, well, most people have woken up and most of the media have woken up to who Henry Kissinger really is. No, unfortunately, they haven't, and they still kind of idolize him. And I'm when it comes to the Middle East, right? Because you have this term shuttle diplomacy that was invented, and I'm talking about the 1973, the Yom Kippur war. So again, this is Egypt, Syria, Israel, etc. And Henry Kissinger, when it comes to Syria, he's meeting with Hafez al-Assad, who's Bashar al-Assad's father. And there's a book, a very, very good book, which details the meeting minute from the Syrian official archives, right? And it's a book that's written by Buthain Shaban. She's basically, if you paid attention to Assad's Arab League visit 2 weeks ago, and I pointed this out when I was showing you his speech, there are two people sitting behind him at the Arab League, right? It was Faisal al-Maqdad, who's the foreign minister, and Buthain Shaban. That's how important she is. Okay, so she's a political and media advisor to both Bashar and his father. Okay, so she took the conversations that Kissinger had with Hafez al-Assad, and she didn't publish all of them, but she basically put all this stuff into a book. And it's funny because I saw there was I don't remember where I read this garbage, but they were saying something about how it's not really giving you the full picture because it only draws from the Syrian archives and not both the Syrian and American archives. Yeah, well, she's sanctioned, so she can't exactly take a trip to Florida or something or Washington and just fetch them for you. But it's just garbage things they say to try and tarnish the book. But yeah, I just want to read you again. I'm jumping back to back and forth in time. This is here from The Guardian. Okay, let's see what they said about his peace plan. So Kissinger would become engaged by events in Angola, where after a left-wing military coup in 1974 against Lisbon's Estado Novo dictatorship, the new regime immediately stopped all military action in the African colony, leading to independence in 1975. Very important, because Angola was as you might have understood, it was a Portuguese colony. Okay, so Lisbon is the capital of Portugal, and once again, this is a place where Kissinger, he just goes there and craps all over the place and makes it worse. And it's funny because people think of him, oh, he's so intelligent, he's so brave, he's so clear-minded, and he has this foresight that nobody else has. He's a goddamn idiot. I don't think he ever expected that Cuba would send troops to to Angola and help them in there. And it completely caught him off guard. And unfortunately, he as I said, he crapped all over the place and made things worse. Now, my parents also, they served in UN peacekeeping in Angola as well. That's a decade later though. But let me just continue the what it says here. So, concerned, this is Henry Kissinger, right? Henry Kissinger was concerned that the Marxist-Leninist People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, that's a mouthful, we'll just say MPLA, one of the combatants in the civil war that followed the coup, would sweep to power, opening the way for Soviet influence. Kissinger moved to engage with Africa. So once again, it's this Cold War thinking that, oh, if you are fighting, if you're fighting with the Soviets, or you're backed by the Soviets, then I'm going to go and back your opponent. Okay? This is the Cold War, unfortunately. You have the United States fighting against the Russians, against the Soviets, through proxies. Okay? Now, in this case, obviously, this is not about America fighting the Russians. The Russians have nothing to do with this, because obviously, there's political and material support, but this is a decolonization movement, okay? It's an anti-colonial movement, just people who want to get rid of white colonizers who come from Portugal, okay? So we don't want to denigrate it. Just always keep that in mind. So, I mean, Henry Kissinger is basically, kind of trying to screw people over because they fought for their own independence. Anyway, let me continue. In his memoir, Izum summarized Kissinger's ambition as, quote, he was determined to seize in Angola what he considered a timely opportunity to display America and Kissinger's strength. Keep in mind, they're talking. These are excerpts from people who worked in the State Department, and basically who worked in the African Affairs Bureau, talking about how Kissinger was at the time. Okay, so. So this is going back to the quote. He believed that defeating the MPLA, which he considered pro-Soviet, could expunge the image of a flabby United States in retreat after Vietnam. Moreover, he thought he could do it on the cheap with clandestine CIA collaboration. He was soon to be proved dead wrong. So remember, this is just after the Americans have been humiliated in Vietnam. Kissinger's so-called peace talks really amounted to nothing in the span of 2 years, with Saigon and everything. So he's trying to make America and himself look good. That's what this is about when he goes to destroy Africa and gets involved in Angola. So the Cubans come in to support the MPLA after South Africa invaded, and its forces drove almost to the capital in Luanda. Okay, Luanda's the capital of Angola. And Kissinger believed that Angola, if Angola would fall, then you'd have, the neighboring countries, Rhodesia, and then actually South Africa itself being, well, I mean, Rhodesia is Zimbabwe now, okay? So it was called that at the time. But, this is, again, this typical Cold War thinking that, we have to contain communism before it spreads. And then, it just ends up destroying countries. It doesn't really actually help anyone. And what the hell are you doing over there? That's also a question to be asked. This is a historian, okay, Nancy Mitchell. It said that Kissinger had a reputation for being a strategic genius. But if you study what Kissinger did in Angola and Rhodesia, it really sheds a light on the weakness of his entire policy in Africa, but also the Middle East and Vietnam. He misread the situation in Angola from the start. He never expected the Cubans to intervene. Okay, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Henry Kissinger is, really completely feel for him, fleeing, Nazi persecution and going to the United States, and it's really great for him that he was, able to find a new life there with his family, and he became a citizen and all these things. It's really good. But he ended up killing so many people. I mean, he's, literally what you'd call a war criminal, a mass murderer. And I just don't understand why, he gets a pass. And the other things you have to consider, where he's wiretapping, people that are, in the upper echelon of the entire U.S. government. He's literally, spying on U.S. government officials. And yes, the fact that he was told to do it, doesn't make it any better. He still carried out these things. I mean, if he were anybody else, he'd be jailed for it. It's you've got conspiracy, you've got treason, you've got a million things that you can do with that. But he gets a pass, right? Like all of these people who are, the what you'd call the elite or the upper echelon. And so, the fact that he's killed so many people and he gets to live to be 100, I find this, it's a sad irony. And I'm not trying to say that he should be robbed of life, but the motherfucker killed, millions of people. He is a disgusting human being, and he is anything but a diplomat. He is the complete opposite of what a diplomat should be, of what a peacemaker is. He is a mass murdering criminal, a war criminal, and let's be unequivocal about it. Period. No amount of whitewashing or rewriting of history is going to help Henry Kissinger. This guy is really a scumbag through and through. Period.